And so it begins. Welcome back to Press Play Action here on Jersey Nerds Productions. I'm Mitchell Lee alongside Brandon too. And in case you're wondering what's beginning, what's starting, huh? What are you doing? Is this becoming like a ping pong podcast? No, it's not. We are not talking ping pong. I think the Forrest Gump review is the closest we got to becoming a ping pong podcast. This is our not. I was about to say Steven Spielberg. That's the wrong guy. Although we will get to him. We're talking about another prominent director, a man by the name of Quentin Tarantino. Ladies and gentlemen, we talked about him in Pulp Fiction, and we both gave that movie extremely high. I think we were both at an A+ for that one. I don't think that we were very far off from each other at all, and I had a very high A+. So, Brandon, we come in today with one Tarantino movie under our belt, and we're going to review his first theatrically released picture, Reservoir Dogs, which came out in 1992. And then we're going to talk about his most financially successful and his biggest movie, Django Unchained, in 2012. And one of your, I won't say complaints with, we talked about this. I don't know whether we talked about it on the last podcast that went out or our Dune 2 review, which the computer gods just said, no, we don't need one more person.
They're just saving it for March. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll hold that in the pocket until March. That's why we didn't have anything come out last week. But Brandon, you were curious as to why I grouped certain movies together.
I was. I believe that was the last podcast we technically did, but wasn't aired to the public.
And this is a bit of a pairing of from humble beginnings to a $100 million budget.
Okay.
Which is the biggest budget of his career. This is his most financially successful movie. And it is probably the most, depending on who you ask, but it's certainly one of his most beloved. Both of these on the IMDb top 250, so we don't have to...
As they should be.
Like, for example, when we get to Kill Bill, Volume 2 is not on the IMDb Top 250, so we're going to be reviewing that, but we're not going to be knocking out two birds with one stone, so to speak. Reservoir Dogs, however, and Django Unchained, they both are. Reservoir Dogs is sitting pretty at number 98 on the IMDb 250, and Django Unchained is at 57.
Oh, top 60. Let's go.
And that's a movie that was in the top 40 when I first started like really looking at the IMDb top 250 in 2013. And most movies that came out around that time and they're in that range, they've fallen off by now, or they're a lot lower. Like Mad Max Fury Road was in the top 20 for a while.
And now it's like
that, and now it's like 230 or something.
Oh, it's 230. Wow, that's a drop off.
It's rare for stuff to stick around. I'm interested to see what happens with Dune 2 because that's currently in the top 10. But like Whiplash is stuck around, Interstellar is stuck around, Inception is stuck around, and Django Unchained has stuck around in there as well. But Quentin Tarantino, one of our most well-known directors, we talked about Pulp Fiction, and Pulp Fiction was really when most people started to take notice of him. It was kind of a cultural phenomenon, and it did very well financially as well, whereas Reservoir Dogs was kind of seen as, and again, I was born in 1994, this movie came out in 1992, so I can only really go off of what other people have said regarding the culture in this movie, but this movie was released on, it premiered at Sundance in 1992, in January, and it was a movie that got exceptionally, it got great reception there, but it was very underground.
Critics loved it, right? Like critics loved it, but it was like underground. Loved it,
but it did have its detractors as well. It was a 90%, but there were some people that were very. We'll talk about the maybe the scene that kind of rubbed people the wrong way when we get into the in-depth review for Reservoir Dogs. But it came out October 9th, 1992, and Brandon, this is something that just sounds like it's made up when you talk about Tarantino. This was the number 136th highest grossing movie of 1992. It made $2.8 million. It was only in 61 theaters at its
That
widest point of release. It made less than movies like Crisscross, This Is My Life, Blame It on the Bellboy, The Gun in Betty Lou's Handbag, Peter's Friends. I bet Peter's Friends don't make movies the way that Quentin Tarantino does.
yeah,
So
I
lots of
mean,
stuff that no one has ever heard of made significantly less than Reservoir Dogs.
yeah, that kind of blows my mind, right? Because even if it gets praise at Sundance and is like this underground type of movie that like critics like, but it's not a mass audience appeal yet. It just seems so weird to me for it to only be released in like 61 theaters, like nationwide, and make that little of money. How much did it cost to make the movie?
Well, it costs, I want to say around $2 million. So it didn't
Okay,
make money, but it didn't lose. It wasn't really like marketed that
probably
much.
got his, probably got him his next movie. That the fact that it like broke even or
That's
barely
the thing.
lost money. Yeah.
But I was texting you about this. I have an interesting story. Well, it's not my story. I just found it about the fact that this movie might have never have seen, maybe not seen the light of day is strong, but no one else would have seen it because Quentin Tarantino was working at a video store in California and was going to shoot this with his friends on a budget of $30,000 in
Oh,
black and white.
like a Skinamarink type of move. Like he was
I
gonna
haven't
like,
seen that, but yeah,
but yeah, like low budget. Like I'm just gonna shoot this with my
yeah,
friends, like on
but
the
not
side.
even
Yeah,
necessarily like, hey, and we'll release it theatrically or anything. Just like,
just
hey,
I'm gonna do this project.
let's
Yeah.
just make a movie. And the producer Lawrence Bender was playing a police officer in the role, and he gave the script to his acting teacher, and the acting teacher's wife gave the script to Harvey Keitel. And Harvey
That,
Keitel liked it
that makes
enough that
sense.
he's like, all right, I'm going to sign on as a co producer and help you find funding for this movie and help you get this thing made. They raised $1.5 million,
Great, Harvey.
and Harvey Keitel was really a big proponent of this, and he helped them uh, host casting set, paid for them to host casting sessions in New York, where they got Michael Madsen, Steve Buscemi, and Tim Roth. There were also Viggo Mortensen and George Clooney read for roles, but they did not end up in the movie.
George Clooney in
But
this movie would be very interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Um.
know. It doesn't say who he was or he would have been,
Right.
but
It,
at the
what,
same time,
was this
this movie was
early in like
very.
Buscemi career and like Tim Roth's career? This was very early, right?
This was 3 years before Fargo.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not 100% certain as to what Buscemi was really doing at the time, but I know that Fargo's kind of like the movie that he's the most known for.
Right. But I guess my
It
point was like these
Things
are
kind of
like
seem to take off after this.
relatively like not unknown actors, but like you want to consider them like A-list actors at the time. And then Harvey Keitel, who's like, borderline pretty, famous, gets on as the role too. So that's interesting.
He was in a few Coen Brothers movies. He was in Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink, and
Yeah.
Coen Brothers are another one that we will get to eventually. But Reservoir Dogs was definitely one that kind of made him more. People were more aware of him after this, and then he
Right.
started being in a bunch of '90s movies that are very well known, stuff like Fargo, Escape from L.A., Con Air, Billy Madison,
Right.
The
Yeah.
Wedding Singer, The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, no, that it just seems interesting the like the way the movie was made, or like you say that story with Keitel, like how it got in front of people's eyes, and then the decisions they made for like casting purposes and kind of casting people who fit the roles, but you like wouldn't think about it probably at the time being like, is this movie even gonna work? Like they probably had to shoot the movie and put it all together for to see if it actually worked as a movie, and that's a big risk on their part to like make the movie in general. So yeah, that's pretty interesting story. Like, and like I said, this, I mean, the fact that it like broke even or maybe lost a little bit of money probably got Tarantino his next movie. Probably was the reason why he got to his next movie. So
The
at
fact
least
that
it
it was
was
so
somewhat
well
successful.
received,
Yeah,
it's like, all
exactly.
right, let's get you to where the entire way through you're doing it with this process. There's no
Yeah,
point where
and
you're
we're
like, hey, I gotta
pushing it
like
marketing wise. Yeah,
exactly, yeah. Let's see what you can do with more resources. And he knocked it out of the park with Pulp Fiction. But if I got to be honest with you, I think he knocked it out of the park with Reservoir Dogs. And there's
yep.
somebody listening to this right now that is saying, Mitchell, all right, you're talking about all this stuff. What the hell is this movie about? Well, I'm getting there. Have some damn patience. All right. This movie is about a group of people that they don't know each. It's like someone's gonna want to kill me for saying this, but someone who watched a bunch of movies in the 2010s, it's my point of reference. It's like Baby Driver, and they have a bunch of people
Yep.
that are pulling a heist together, but they've never worked on a heist together before because this guy doesn't like to use the same group over and over again.
Right.
Just like in Baby Driver, and it's got these guys played by Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Chris Penn, Steve Buscemi, Lawrence Tierney, Michael Madsen. Quentin Tarantino's also in the movie very briefly. I know we've acknowledged that he's not a very good actor, and
Edward
he's not in
Bunker.
this either, but he's also not in it very long at all. And it's these guys, they're diamond thieves, and they try to rob a jewelry store, and it goes extremely wrong. And so they go to their hideout place,
Right.
and it's kind of a, I don't want to say it's a bottle film because it definitely has different locations, but there's a vibe of they're in their little hideout area, and they're trying to find out, all
Who's
right,
the rat?
the way that things were set up, there's no way that someone was not this isn't some sort of,
Right.
there's not a rat here. Someone had to have told them that this was going to happen because like half of the crew died.
Like we were set up. Like it was
Yes.
plain as day they were set up, and someone was a quote unquote the rat, and they had to sniff out the rat and stomp out the rat. And that's basically what the movie is. It's just like an entire what hour and 30 minutes of like, I guess, in order or out of order, playing back the events leading up to and the events after this diamond heist gone wrong. Yeah, and it's
There's a
just
lot of that
very
Tarantino playing with time thing that you would see in something like Pulp Fiction. And I saw a lot of Pulp Fiction in something like this. I saw a lot of Pulp Fiction and I saw a lot of Hateful Eight. And we'll
yep.
get to Hateful Eight here in a few weeks as we continue on with the Tarantino. But I saw a lot of the inspiration for that in this movie, in that you have a lot of strangers and none of them trust each other. None
Right.
of
I
them
think that's
trust
the
each other.
biggest key, right?
But
There's
unlike
no
the
trust.
Hateful Eight, where you kind of have time to sit and breathe with these characters and then the mistrust starts,
Right.
this throws you in right away to the point where it took me a little bit to be like, all right, where are we going? What's
Right.
going on? Because at first it's just them talking at a diner and all the people having a conversation, and then there's blood and
Oh, a lot of
uh,
blood.
a lot of blood. And Tim Roth's character's in the back of the car. He thinks he's going to die. Harvey Keitel's driving him, saying, "Hey, we're going to go to this hideout place." And then Joe, which is the person that kind of puts everyone on, played by Lawrence Tierney.
I guess he's the mob boss, right? Or
Yeah, he's the one that
yeah.
kind of has everything situated.
Yeah, he's the thread between everybody. He's the central connection. He's the guy who doesn't like to reuse crews, but it's like a amalgamation of all these different people that he would think would be perfect for this job, but none of them know each other. And it's just an interesting way of doing it. And they all have code names too, and all the code names have to do with color. And it's like you're not going to give away your actual name. You're going to be going by Mr. White or Mr. Orange or Mr. Blonde, Mr. Brown, Mr. Blue. You're not allowed to say your real name to anybody because in case this goes wrong, we have to have deniability. We have to have a way to get out of this. So the only thing we know is what each other looks like, and we're not supposed to know anything else past that. And it's actually like really well set up in terms of like that's probably what you would do if you were trying to pull off a diamond heist. You'd probably want to know the least amount of information about the people you were pulling the heist with, in some points in circumstances. And yeah, it's just a very interesting film, and maybe we can dive more into how it is set up. But yeah, you're right. It just throws you right into it. There's just blood all over the backseat of a car, and you're like, "What is going on?" And it's just Tim Roth's character bleeding out, and that's kind of he just throws you into it head first.
There's a thing in this movie that I think stupid people would have a problem with this, but I don't think I'm stupid, so I don't have a problem with this. And that's the
Yeah.
fact that you never really see the robbery go down. It's all
Yes.
about
Yes.
you hear about things that happen. And I like the fact that it lets your mind connect the dots between things. And also, if you say, like, so and so was just going off, and yeah, you can, what you are imagining is probably more interesting than what they're going to put on the screen. But also, unlike most of Tarantino movies now, where it's, a 2 hour, 30-minute extravaganza, this is a tight hour 39. And so, I mean, with the smaller budget, it kind of had to be. So they get you in, they get you out, and the focus is kept on the mystery, but also getting to know some about these characters, and you kind of piecing together, all right, well, if this person's got this going on, then that means maybe that person's the one that can't be trusted. But wait, no,
Right.
that person's losing their mind right now. So I don't think they'd be doing that.
And then it's like,
And
oh well, you never heard anything about Mr. Blue, so like, is it Mr. Blue's the rat? Like, I think I
we
mentioned
also
Eddie
have all the
Bunker.
dead people.
Right. I mentioned Eddie Bunker, and I think his character is so fascinating because Tarantino could have showed Mr. Blue like dying, Mr. Blue's like backstory, and he is like the biggest mystery in the entire film. It's just like, well, Mr. Blue died. It's just like we have no idea what happened to him. But yeah, we got out of there. He got shot up, and like everyone's just going their different ways, and there's just all this information coming out. It's like, okay, so you made it out, Mr. Blonde. You made it out. Okay, Mr. Brown, Tarantino's character, didn't make it out. He got shot in the head. It's like, so what happened to Mr. Blue? And it's like, oh, he's dead. Like, you just hear like secondhand information, like, oh, he dies, and like you never see it. And I think to me, that's like a fascinating way to handle a character where you are kind of like, yeah, but I kind of want to know a little bit about Eddie Bunker's character. I kind of want to know, like, what happened to him, but like I don't think that's the point. I don't think the point is to talk about Mr. Blue. And the point is to focus on the other four guys that are like involved in the heist. Yeah, so it's just a very interesting take on it. And yeah, I don't know, like outside of the opening scene, how long did it take you to kind of get into it? Because for me, as soon as you see Tim Roth like giving his performance, and Keitel's like doing his thing, yeah, I kind of like bought in like immediately. And I know this was like a rewatch for me. Like the first time I saw it, I probably didn't buy in as quickly, but upon rewatch, I bought in like within like 10 minutes or less. I was like, okay, I'm into this movie. Like I don't know where this is going, but like I'm here for it. So I guess when did you start buying in, I guess?
Well, I was bought in just from the fact that it was a Quentin Tarantino movie, and I kind of trusted that I was in good hands.
Right.
But I go into every movie blank slate, no matter who's directing it, who's in front of the camera, behind the camera, all that stuff. So I guess once multiple people started showing up at the hideout, I think once Steve Buscemi came in, because at first it's Harvey Keitel and it's Tim Roth, and Tim Roth's just losing massive amounts of blood. Where he keeps telling him, like, "Hey, you're gonna
Honestly,
be
I
all
have
right,"
no
and
idea
I'm
how
like,
he's not dead. Like I don't know
"Yeah."
how he didn't die.
He
Like
keeps saying,
it
like,
was
"Hey,
crazy.
you're gonna be all right," and I'm like, I really don't think that's true. This man has lost Gatorade buckets of blood. I don't think he's gonna be okay, man.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but then Steve Buscemi comes in, and it's not just, "Hey, is this guy okay?" It's, "No, what happened? what, like, he comes in
It's
just
chaotic.
flustered,
Yeah,
and
it's
you
chaotic.
definitely get the vibe of someone. Some movies can try this type of thing where it's like, man, it was crazy, it was chaotic, but it doesn't feel lived in quite that well. This makes you really feel like these people just got back from pulling off a heist that went terribly wrong, and just they'd love to lay low, but they're furious and they need to figure out what exactly happened. And so I really think that Steve Buscemi's character is the one that kind of got me over the top as
Yeah,
far as getting me from, all right, where's this going? What's this about? To I'm in.
yeah. Now I'm in. Yeah, and I think for
But
me, yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but that's not a slight on the rest of the cast,
Yeah,
because I was really impressed. I usually do not like Michael Madsen. I don't think he's a very good actor, but I really liked him in this. I think that this is probably the best role that he's had, at least
he
that I
might be
can
the
remember.
he might be the best character.
I would disagree with that.
I
I
mean, I
think you
don't
know
think
where
he
I'm
is,
going
but
to
you can
go.
make the argument. Yeah, you can make the argument that he is.
I really liked the Harvey Keitel Tim Roth dynamic that's set up early in the movie, but especially, man, this is going to be the second straight Tarantino review that we talk about where I'm just here like, Harvey Keitel, this guy
Yeah,
is fantastic. This
no, he gets
really
it.
made me want to dive deep and made me want to go watch something like Mean Streets from the 70s when he was in with De Niro. And again, Martin Scorsese, another prominent director. We will get to him, but this he just works so well with Quentin Tarantino. He saw something in this script, and I think that he was really able to sink his teeth into this character in a way that a lot of other actors wouldn't be able to bring the kind of lived in sincerity that this guy has. But he also just seems like, in a room full of people like Steve Buscemi and Michael Madsen and Chris Penn, who just want to fly off the handle, he's the one that's kind of got a little bit more of a cool head.
Right.
And in a lot of movies, the one that does fly off the handle is the one that's more attention grabbing. And in
Sure,
this
and
movie,
that's Michael Madsen. Yeah.
yeah, and in this movie, I think the one that's more cool, calm, collected is the one that stands out more to me. But Michael Madsen is the one, and we'll get to this more in spoilers. Michael
It's
Madsen has a part in this movie that a lot of people really objected to, but
I'm assuming it's the scene
Tarantino,
with the cop, right? I mean, I'm
yes,
guessing people
which
just did not like that.
I I
It's
understand.
borderline psychotic. I mean, it really is.
I don't think borderline needs to be applied there.
Well,
I
okay.
think
I
it
mean,
is.
it's over the line psychotic, but I and I
It's
don't know if I
insane.
fully. Yeah, I don't know. It's insane. I don't know if I fully agree with it, and it's kind of wild. But I also kind of understand from the point of view of like, if you really want to like hammer home this guy's a psychopath, like, well, that's one way to do it. You know, like definitely. There was no tiptoeing around the line. It was let's kick the door in and run through the door and breach it and throw some flashbangs and get
Yeah.
in there and really break down the door. So I yeah, I can see why people don't like the scene. We can get to that later in spoilers. But yeah, I think that's kind of why I'm like I agree with you that Madsen's not the best character, and I actually think I might have a different opinion from you in terms of who's the best character. But I think Buscemi and Keitel, there's a dynamic of chaotic uh fever and like anxiety, and then like you were saying with Cartel, like a calm, cool, and collected. Like, all right, like I understand you're going off the deep end, Mr. Pink. Like you want to like run, like we need to get out of here, but look, Mr. Orange is in the corner bleeding out. Like we got to get him
Yeah.
some medical attention. So it's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess we can jump into how do you feel about the guys who weren't part of the heist? So like Lawrence Tierney and Chris Penn with like Nice Guy Eddie. How do you feel about that dynamic with the father and son and kind of like how those characters interacted with the rest of the cast? Because I think that's the real like crux of the movie is like you get this heist, but then you get like Joe and Nice Guy Eddie kind of being like, well, like we paid you guys to do this job, like, or like we're paying you to do this job correctly. Like, what the fuck happened? And yeah, I think it's really brilliant how they kind of tied together. But I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on like Penn and Tierney's characters.
I think that those parts of the movie were fine. The cutaway parts to kind of stuff that happened before. I didn't
Yeah,
really care quite as much about the whole father son dynamic. That
that's fair.
it just kind of felt a little bit repetitive. About he kind of felt like he needed to prove himself, type of thing. It it felt more out of place in the movie to me personally. Whereas I liked the dynamic with like the conversation they have with Michael Madsen. I think that that was like that set things up, and I did like that. And it was also a nice contrast because he doesn't exactly act the same in every single scene.
No, exactly. He's not. Well,
Um,
he doesn't give off the of in a he doesn't give off an aura of sociopathic tendencies. He
yeah.
kind of hides that, but like it's down there. And
There's
it's just
also a few
interesting.
scenes where they show not the heist, but just kind of them trying to get away from the scene of the crime
Right.
and get to their car to go to the hideout, type
I
of
do like
thing.
those. I like those scenes a
And
lot.
those scenes were tense. They were tough. It was, you definitely felt the stress, especially, well, I won't say especially Steve Buscemi, because there's one later on as well where it's just like, I don't know how you guys are getting out of this. And oh, no, people are dropping,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's, and I really appreciated that about it, that people weren't just impervious to bullets, that
Yeah, that's fair.
people, I mean, most, like half of the people that you see at the dinner table or the lunch table or whatever, you do not see again unless it's a flashback to them dying in the heist.
Right.
There's a lot of people. If you don't really recognize someone at that dinner table, they don't recognize what's going on in the rest of the movie because they haven't read the script because they're dead. They're like, hey, we need you for one scene and then you're dying. Goodbye.
Yeah. Like if you're Eddie Bunker and you sign up for this part, Tarantino's like, "All right, man, I need you to sit there for this brunch and make one offhand comment, and then you can peace out. Deuces, we don't need you anymore. Like
Yeah.
we need you in two shots. We need you in the brunch scene, and we need you walking to the car. That's the only thing we need. Everything else, you're golden, man. Just go collect the paycheck and go call it a day. Yeah, I mean, yeah, really, if you think about it, what there was 8 people at the brunch table, and 5 of them were dead
Yeah.
by the halfway point of the movie. Like it's kind of crazy to think
By the
about.
way, there is a point in the movie where they're talking about Pam Grier.
Yeah,
And I thought that was interesting because Pam Grier's in Jackie Brown.
yeah.
So I just thought that was
He's
interesting.
just
And
tying it in. Yeah,
yeah, like I guess maybe he just always admired Pam Grier. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe she
Well,
had nice feet, knowing Tarantino.
fair. I mean, we're not gonna get into that. But
We'll save
okay,
that for Once
so
Upon a Time in Hollywood.
true. So the one other thing I wanted to touch on was the music. I especially enjoyed how the music in this one particular radio station was tied into like the plot of the movie almost because of how
Yeah,
they used it.
it was like John Wick 4 when at the end of the movie they have that one like French DJ that's like, this one goes out to you, John Wick. You have nowhere left to run. And then it's like, nowhere
Right.
to hide now, baby.
Yeah. I what was it? It was K Billy's superpower like 70s station, I believe it was what it was
Something like
called.
that.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting how it was like tied into the movie almost. almost. And I guess we can get in that with Django because
He
Django
was.
does an amazing job of like tying in the
I
music
was just about to say I'm
to
gonna
the
hold off on the praising Tarantino for needle drops until we get to Django, but
right.
yeah, K Billy, it's almost like he was sitting back watching the movie and just like, "Ah, I think this song will go well. This one
Yeah,
goes out to you, Mister Orange, with your dumb ass." Like,
yeah, exactly. It's just like what would have made it more funny is if it had been like, I shot the sheriff. If that like had happened at any point in the script, that would have been hilarious. But I just think
oh, I was just
it was
thinking about
really
what
funny.
movie I saw. I was like, I swear I saw a movie with that song in it. It was the Bob
Was it a
Marley movie.
Tarantino? Oh, okay,
No, it was
yeah,
the Bob
yeah,
Marley
yeah.
movie.
Well, yeah, of
Yeah,
course. But
yeah.
yeah, I just thought, yeah, man, that's really the only thing I have for this movie outside of like getting into spoilers. I also do want to touch on the way this movie is edited is wild. Like the
I like it.
decisions they make to edit this movie is kind of wild. But yeah, I'm here for it, and you'll see with my grade. I think this is like one of the most brilliantly edited movies, and like really all of cinema. Like I think
Well, let's go
it
in.
makes
Let's
it.
let's let's dive in. Brandon, you want first crack at this thing?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Let me pull up my letterbox grade. Yep, it's very high, as you saw last night on my letterbox. I'm giving this an A plus 80.8. And for reference, Top Gun Maverick, which I absolutely loved from 2 years ago, I gave an A plus 81.0. So
Okay, so this is just below that.
I think this movie is awesome. It'd probably win best movie of the year for me on most most years, or win like the top 3 for sure. This movie is awesome. And I think the way it is edited, the way it is directed, the way it's written, and then the acting on top of that, there's just some outstanding performances. And this is quintessential Tarantino. And I love it as a debut film for him as a director because it's like an awesome way to be like, this is my first movie I've ever like really put out there. Like, I'm putting it all on the table, and he really does.
By the way, do you know? I forgot to get to this at the beginning of. I usually talk about Oscars. Um, do you know what all got nominated for this?
I would assume Keitel got nominated or Tim Roth got nominated, and maybe cinematography or like something to do with costumes, maybe even
Well, guess what, Brandon? This movie got zero nominations at the Oscars.
zero,
None,
nothing,
none.
not
Best
even like a
picture.
Harvey Keitel or Tim Roth.
Nope. Nope. Best picture that year went to Unforgiven by Clint Eastwood, which I've heard is a fantastic movie. I haven't seen it, but I've heard great things about it. And if I have to say it again, I'll say it a billion times. Clint Eastwood, we'll get to him.
Right,
But Unforgiven seems to be a strong Best Picture winner. For Reservoir Dogs, I can't. We're in another American Beauty type situation
right,
where I just can't get quite as high on the Reservoir Dogs supply that you did, but that does
sure.
not mean that I don't love it. It's a 78.89% on the A scale for me,
On the A scale.
which is just below American Beauty for me. I do love
Yeah,
this movie and I think it's fantastic, but I do think that there are some times where the tone just feels a bit it's just a bit off for me, whether it's that scene in where Michael Madsen's talking with the dad and the son. It just kind of throws me out of the mystery, or the Michael Madsen stuff where it kind of just goes a little bit too far in some places. And I know it makes it sound like,
yeah,
well, you just didn't like Michael Madsen. No, I really liked Michael Madsen. I just think Michael Madsen's in a lot of scenes. He's doing a really good job, but it just kind of feels a tad bit disjointed for me personally. But I understand that there are people who watch Tarantino movies and think that this is his best movie, that think that his top one out of the gate uh,
I
was
think it's
Reservoir
close.
Dogs.
Personally, I think it's close. And I guess based off my grading scale, you will see how close I think it is.
Wait,
But
where was this compared to Pulp Fiction?
so I actually have this above Pulp Fiction because I have Pulp Fiction at a 70.5 A plus.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I really like this movie, and that's not to say I don't like Pulp Fiction.
And you
And
said
I've
that
only
this is an
seen
81?
80.8.
Okay, so you have this slightly above where
Yeah,
I have Pulp Fiction. I have Pulp
right.
Fiction at an 80.38.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
wow.
I I will say this: I've only seen Pulp Fiction all the way through once, and so maybe if I continue to rewatch it, it will just like climb the scale for me. But I really, really like this movie. Like every time I rewatch it, and it's like that hour and 30 minutes. It's really an hour and 30 because of the credits at the end. So it's really like an hour and 32 minutes of just pure runtime. Those hour and 32 minutes, I just can't get enough of it. Like I just think it's like quintessential Tarantino. And I know everyone loves Pulp Fiction and everyone loves Django, but this is like I feel like this is his movie. This is like yeah, this is who I am as a director. Like we got other stuff, but this is me as a director, and I really appreciate that about it. And look, I totally understand like not liking the Michael Madsen scene, Mr. White scene, and sorry the Mr. Blonde scene with the cop. I totally understand that, and quite frankly, it was a little gruesome for me too. I probably threw up in my mouth a little bit. Like I completely understand that, but I still think there's enough there where I just love this movie. I really do.
All right, let's go ahead and dive into Django Unchained.
Man,
Once again, the man, the myth, the legend, Quentin Tarantino directed and wrote this. This stars Jamie Foxx, Christoph Waltz, Leonardo DiCaprio, Kerry Washington, Samuel L. Jackson, as well as other people. And it was released on Christmas of 2012. This was the first Tarantino movie that I ever. No, it's not. It's the second Tarantino movie I ever watched. It was the first one I ever saw in theaters. The
fair.
first one I ever watched was
Did
Inglourious
you sneak
Bastards.
into it? Did you sneak into it?
No, I
Because
was
I don't know.
18.
You were
I
18 by
was
then.
I,
I
I
don't
was
think I
18
was.
when it came out.
I think I was. I think I
You were
want to
born
say.
the same year as me.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I didn't sneak into it. I had friends that sneaked into it because they were like 16 or they weren't old enough. But I will say I had friends that walked out of Les Mis and then went into this movie. That's how much
Don't
they.
walk out of Les Mis. Les Mis
I
is a
know,
good
right?
movie.
Well, they didn't know Les Mis
Not
was
as
a
good as this,
musical.
but Les
Yeah,
Mis.
they
Les Mis.
didn't know Les Mis was a musical, and that was the reason
Oh,
why. Yes, which they should have known. But
see,
I
I had a
stand to
very
it.
similar experience with Les Mis
Right,
because I watched it and I was at this point where I'm like, I hate musicals. I don't want anything to do with musicals. No,
and then
no,
you
no,
watched
no,
it and you
no.
were like,
But
"Oh
I was
shit!"
like, no, 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 no. The first time I watched it, I saw it and I watched it at home and I didn't know that they were going to sing the entire movie. I thought it was going to be like, all right,
Well,
plot,
it's
musical
a
number,
musical.
plot,
Yeah,
musical
yeah.
number. I didn't know that they were going to be singing like, I want some bread, I want some bread, I want some bread. Like I didn't know that that was going to be the whole thing. So I turned it off
John
5 minutes
Valjean
in.
is just like singing through
Yeah,
his entire. Yeah,
I turned it off 5 minutes in, but I did
fair
come back
enough.
to it years later, and I do love that movie. But as
I
far as Django Unchained goes, I saw this in theaters,
yeah yeah
and it was it wasn't a very full theater. I want to say that me and the girl that I was dating at the time, we were two of four people on our
right.
row. It was not very full. It was
That's what
during that
I
like
feel
Christmas
about
break.
the movie. Yeah, that's what I feel about the movie. Like I remember my friends going like sneaking into that movie because they walked out of Les Mis and they're like, "Well, let's go see Django because we've heard good things about it." And there like wasn't that many people in the theater. Yeah, that's what I remember most about like the movie is like there wasn't that many people, but then I heard like word of mouth, like from my friends who had seen it, like, "Oh no, you got to check out Django Unchained. Like this movie's like legit."
See, I thought the trailers looked good, but the main reason why I went to see that movie, I wasn't as in touch with movies as I am now, is I saw Leonardo DiCaprio. Got to go watch it. So
Yeah,
that
that's
that's
fair.
what got, especially seeing Leonardo
That's an
DiCaprio playing a
auto
bad guy. I'm
right.
like,
That's
ooh,
an
I really
auto
have to.
watch.
I gotta check this thing out. And I watched it and I really liked it at the time, but it just seemed so long.
Well,
Like
yeah.
it was a very long movie, and also I don't think I had ever seen anything that violent to that point before. So
I mean,
I
probably
enjoyed
not.
it. I
If you
enjoyed it,
hadn't
but it
seen many R-rated movies, you probably hadn't seen
no,
that.
no.
You know what I
So it
mean?
took me a little bit to kind of like figure out where I stood with things and kind of how I was feeling and kind of recalibrate. This movie was the 15th highest grossing movie of 2012, highest grossing movie of Tarantino's career, $162 million domestically, which is a really good number. And this was a not only a box office success, making 426 million on a $100 million budget worldwide. It was also a big success at the Oscars. It was nominated for five Oscars, and it won two of them, with Tarantino winning for Best Original Screenplay and Christoph Waltz winning his second Oscar for Best Supporting Actor after his win for Inglourious Bastards in the previous Tarantino movie, uh, Inglourious Bastards in 2009, which we will definitely be comparing the two wins for Christoph Waltz, especially when we get to Inglourious Bastards. But this is a story, if you don't know, this is set in the Old West in 1858 Texas. And this is about a slave named Django who trains under a German bounty hunter, Dr. King Schultz, played by Christoph Waltz. And they work together, and eventually they kind of set their course to rescue Django's wife, Carrie Washington, who is a slave at the plantation owned by Calvin Candyland. Uh, that's Leonardo DiCaprio, and madness ensues. And
Genius marketing from a southern slave owner. Name your plantation Candyland. Just
I just
genius
want
marketing.
I want them to release, and I hope that no kids get it, but I want them to release a version of the Candyland board game that's nothing but Django characters.
That's too
There,
far.
there's a quote. Obviously, I can't say it, and we will dance around the issue as carefully as two white boys can
Right,
about
right.
the use of the N word in this movie and how there's
Oh,
a lot
it's
of
very
people.
prominent. Yeah.
Yes, there's people that had like it was used so prominently that they were like, I just no, I'm out on the movie
Yeah,
because
fair.
of that. It's also slaves in the 1850s, so I'm not really
Right.
sure what people expected. But at the same time, there's a quote that Samuel Jackson has at the end of the movie about Candyland, and I'm like, you should put that on the box for the Django version of
For
Candyland.
the boy.
Uh, Whoever's in charge
Gee,
of, like the MPAA for
Hasbro
board
should be
games
on
come
this.
in
Yeah.
and shut it down.
Hasbro Hasbro should have been on this from the jump.
I'm telling you, man, and just have that
I
face
just don't think it would land. I just
that
don't think it would
Samuel L.
land the way
Jackson makes.
no, I feel you. I just don't think it would land the way you think
I'd
it would
buy
on
it.
the shelves. I mean,
I would buy it.
you would buy it because you love the movie,
I'd
but
play it every day.
and not to sound like I'm like upset at people, but I feel like people would be offended by that board game if it was on the shelves.
No, I'm with you. I definitely agree with you, but man, it would be so much fun. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it or be like, oh, maybe I like this movie, maybe I don't. I love this movie. This is
Right.
just one of
Yeah.
my favorite movies of the 2010s. It's grown on me so much through the years, and it's again we talked about Tarantino and how Reservoir Dogs was, humble beginnings. He had a nice $2 million budget, hour and a half. This is 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it's $100 million, and it's got the biggest names. It's got DiCaprio. It's got Jamie Foxx, who it was supposed to be Will Smith, who played Django, which I can't imagine Will Smith doing this. Will Smith's a great actor. I love Will Smith, but I cannot imagine anyone other
I
than
think he'd
Jamie
be
Foxx playing this.
yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. And I do like Jamie Foxx as an actor. Like as much as he's like known for like Gold Digger and like all these like songs and whatnot, like I like him as an actor. I think he's good. And this movie,
Ray
he's
Charles.
perfect. Yeah, I mean he's absolutely perfect in this role. It'd be interesting to see Will Smith in this role, and I think he would pull it off, but I don't think he would do it quite the same way that Jamie Foxx does. And so I think it's a great casting. Now I did come across a video where basically Tarantino apparently said to Fox, and this was like on a podcast, he
I
told
think we're
Fox,
about to
yes,
talk
the
about the same
same
thing.
video. If you want to go ahead and explain it, because you might explain it better than I do.
I think it was
But yeah,
Howard Stern or something where basically Jamie Foxx came in and he was acting like Jamie Foxx as Django. He was all cool and suave. And Tarantino was basically like, hey man, cut the shit. Like, he's a slave at first. He doesn't know how to read. He hasn't been free. He he has no confidence. You can't be all cool. He says something about you come in here with your fucking Gucci bag and your Range Rover,
right.
knock that shit off. And then he just went to set and Jamie Foxx just went on and absolutely killed it. And he was like, yeah, no, I'd absolutely love to work with Tarantino again. That's exactly what I needed to get in the mindset of this character. And the arc of Django in this is so
Right.
fascinating to watch because he, at the beginning, he can barely put together a complete sentence. He
Yeah.
looks terrified. And by, as things go on, he just
By
gains
the
more and
second
more
and third
confidence.
act, he's out here cooking. Like
You
he
want to talk
is.
about all-time
Yeah.
great Western duos or duos in movies, period. Jamie Foxx and Christoph Waltz as Django and Dr. King Schultz are just unbelievable. They have such great chemistry. First of all, I think it's a shame that Jamie Foxx wasn't nominated for Best Actor.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
I don't know how
A
Denzel
travesty.
Washington got nominated for Flight. Not only is that a bad movie, I don't think it's that great of a performance. Jamie Foxx blows that out of the water
Yeah, I'm
tenfold.
never gonna diss Denzel, but like that, I mean, it's more Jamie Foxx just didn't get nominated. It's like really the I
No,
just don't
I
understand it.
I'll take a shot at Flight. 'Cause Flight's terrible. I really don't
Okay,
like that
fair.
movie.
No, I haven't seen
But
it, so I can't know if I can take the shot that you can. But I will say, thinking about like actors getting snubbed or actresses getting snubbed, I mean that's got to be one of like the biggest snubs
and
in like
there's there
all of
we will
Oscar
get
history.
to, I think there's an even bigger one
Right.
in this cast, but Dr. King Schultz, played by Christoph Waltz, is this bounty hunter who comes and he frees Django because he's like, hey, I need to kill these three people and I have no idea what they look like, but you were a former slave of theirs. You know what they look like. You come along with me. I'll grant you your freedom and let's go. And just from the opening scene of the movie with Dr. King Schultz and his damn tooth on the on his little carriage or whatever, it's got a good sense of humor to it, but also at the same time, you get the sense that this guy is the absolute best at what he does. And the
Yeah.
camaraderie that he comes to have with Django, and I think it really gets started in the scene that takes place in a tavern where they're talking about what they need to do and kind of what his job is. That, hey, I'm a bounty hunter. This is what a bounty hunter is. And again, they nail it so well. The whole, he doesn't know anything other than being a slave. So things have to be explained to him, with the exception of, and some people think this is a little far fetched, that Django is just this absolute sniper, with a gun to start out, but he does learn, he gets better. They have the training montage where him and Christoph Waltz are,
You didn't
doing
hear
business over the winter.
Christoph Waltz character. You didn't hear Schultz. He was like kid's a natural. He snipes the clan member from like miles away. It's kind of funny. He snipes him out of a tree. But yes, he isn't like picks up a gun and is immediately like the best shooter in the West or whatever. Yeah.
The scene with the sheriff and the marshal might have been what won Christoph Waltz the Oscar.
Yeah, fair.
It's early enough in the movie that I don't feel bad about spoiling it, but they go into this like saloon And
If people haven't seen this movie by now, I don't feel as
I
bad.
don't really want to
To be
spoil
fair.
too much. I mean, we will at the end, but there's a scene where they go into a saloon and they don't want Django in that saloon at all. So the sheriff comes out and he's like, "Hey, you got to get out of here. You and Django got to leave." And so he just shoots him point blank. Then the marshal comes around and he's like, "All right, we've got everyone in this town, including old Mary Sue over there, pointing a gun at you and Django." And he just calmly explains that, yeah, that sheriff is actually a wanted outlaw that just went by a different name, and you dumbasses elected him as sheriff. So, y'all owe me $200. It's it's a fantastic scene, and it's a perfect marriage between Christoph Waltz's acting ability and Quentin Tarantino's direction, and these two just kind of work like hand in glove together.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's absolutely perfect. I'm just thinking about. I think we should get into it. Is the needle drops in this movie?
This
It's
movie has,
unreal.
I
The
think the
needle
needle
drops.
drops in this movie can go toe to toe with any movie ever, as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
agreed.
And I don't
And
know if all of these songs, I know there are some songs that were made specifically for the movie.
right.
Like there is there, if you haven't seen the movie, you will be very confused when I say this. There's a Rick Ross needle drop in this Western. And I
It's
heard about it
amazing.
before I saw the movie.
It's
And it
amazing.
went so incredibly hard when I was at the movie theater watching it. But every single time since, I'm just like, this just fits. I don't know how. I can't explain it. But this Rick Ross song just fits what's going on right now.
Yeah.
There's a John Legend song later in the movie, and I think it's incredible. And
To,
I'm not even the
to,
biggest John Legend fan, but it works perfectly. The scene, the music at the very end of the movie, the last song that plays, as we go into the end credits, is fantastic. There's a scenario that happens twice in this movie that I'll talk about more in
yeah.
spoilers, and they play the same song, and I think that was such
Oh, and
like
it just works.
a clever callback, and I'm like,
Right. It's like a
it
clever
really feels
callback.
like a major setback when you hear that music, and it really adds to it.
For Rick Ross's song, are you talking about 100 Black Coffins?
Oh yeah,
Is that what yeah,
but there's no other. There is one
that
needle drop
song
that I
goes
didn't think
so
was as
hard.
good,
Yeah,
and that
but that
was
that song goes so hard. It really
yes, it
does.
does. There's one needle drop that I didn't like too much, and that's just because there's like some spoken word part of it, in a shootout later in the movie, that I just felt like that the timing of it was a bit off, but
The
everything else is so good
right,
that I'm not gonna complain.
right, yeah. Not to spoil any plot, but like when he's going back to Candyland at some point, and the song that plays after he kind of gets his freedom back, and it's like, I'm doing the Lord's work today, or whatever it says.
That's the
I was
John
like,
Legend song.
right, that's the
Dude,
John Legend
that
song,
song,
and
John Legend needs to like only make music for movies apparently, because the song he
right.
made for La La Land goes hard, and the song he made for Django goes hard. There's also a song called "I Got a Name" that's
Oh,
used in,
Jim Corsi. Yeah,
yeah,
it's so good.
that's used in like a montage of Dr. King Schultz and Django just kind of setting out uh, to do business in the winter together, and the cinematography mixed with
Right,
the
the shots,
song, and it's
like
just like
the sweeping shots of like the plane as they're like riding on horseback. It's like it just fits. It
the
works.
best way that I can describe that scene, and it doesn't really fit the rest of the movie,
No, it doesn't.
but
It's completely different.
uh but this particular scene makes you feel like you're an 8-year-old watching a western on your dad's lap.
Yep.
Just like, hey
Like
dad, show
going
me one
back
of
to
your
like
favorite.
John Wayne.
Yeah,
Yep.
show me one of your favorite John Wayne movies, dad, and you're just watching that on like some 12-inch TV together.
Yeah,
Like,
with the antenna up. Yeah,
the
exactly.
vibes are kind of immaculate as far as that
Yeah,
goes.
yeah.
Uh, Speaking of
Also,
immaculate, oh, go ahead.
no, the last thing I was gonna say about needle drops I started playing this as you started talking about Django at the beginning of the podcast. I mean, when we started talking about Django, when you were introducing the movie, um, I think it's the perfect intro to any movie imaginable. Is the intro literally titled Django, and it's just like Django, and it's just like the
Django.
music. Yeah, the music is so amazing, and I just absolutely love it. I think it might be one of the best like opening like intros of a movie like ever. Like it is so good. And I know that the opening scenes is like slavers like walking slaves like in chains across like to another place, and it like it shouldn't fit and it shouldn't feel like it works, but it does. It just absolutely works. And then there's a callback to it, and there's it's just so good. And yeah, I that's the last thing I was gonna say about like the music and like needle drops. Like this song could have won for music, and I kind of hope it did. At the Oscars it probably didn't, but like if you told me that 100 Black Coffins like won best original song, I wouldn't even like argue with you. You know what I mean?
Didn't One, it didn't get nominated,
That's
but
ridiculous.
two,
It's absolutely
when
ridiculous.
I tell you what won, you're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, no, that was a lock, automatic. No one else had a chance in hell."
Was it Anne Hathaway?
No, because that's not an original song.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Skyfall by Adele
Oh well, yeah. I mean,
from the opening
okay.
credits
To be
of
honest,
Skyfall. Yeah,
if they come to you as a songwriter and they're like, "Hey, we want you to write the opening theme for a James Bond movie," you're probably winning an Oscar for it
and it's
because
Adele, and it's
yeah,
one of the best Bond movies ever,
right, yeah.
and maybe the best Bond song ever. A lot
No,
of
that is
people
the best
think
Bond
that,
song
and
ever.
I agree.
I'm with it. I'm on it because Billie Eilish is great, and I love No Time to Die.
And she
But
won too,
yeah,
and so
yeah,
did Sam Smith. And a lot of people hated Sam Smith's. I didn't, but it's
I
definitely
didn't.
not
Yeah,
as good as
I
Adele's
think
or Billie Eilish's.
I think every single one they've done has crushed. Like
N-
if they
Not
come to you,
Madonna,
okay, you can
the
feel the
Daniel
way you
Craig
feel.
ones.
You can feel the way you feel about the Madonna song, but I'm just telling you, if they come to you as a songwriter and they're like, "Hey, we want you to write the opening theme for a Bond film," I mean, I feel like you're gonna get nominated for an Oscar. I mean, it's just you're just automatically getting nominated. So yeah, that makes sense though. Skyfall winning, but
Um,
yeah, go
Before
ahead.
we
What
get
else are we gonna say?
to some of the big supporting actors that come uh, in the middle part of the movie, and I remember sitting there waiting, I'm like, when is this person coming?
Okay,
I've been
like
here
this was
for a while.
marketing, like
Yeah,
marketed as like, yeah, this guy's part of the movie.
but we'll get to it. Don Johnson in this movie playing Colonel Sanders, I thought was just incredible. He's not Colonel Sanders. He plays a character called Big Daddy, but
He might as well be Colonel.
he might as well have been Colonel Sanders. And I thought that he was just
He delivers one of
despicable and
my
yet funny, and
right.
there's memes to be had for
Oh,
days
there's so many
from
memes.
from his character in this
He
movie.
delivers one of my favorite lines. It's just like, oh, well, in that case, come on in, have yourself a
Yeah.
cool drink.
There's also Tarantino's good at dialogue that has nothing to really do with the script, but it kind of does.
But
But
like
it makes
tweaking it where it works. Yeah.
it makes the world feel lived in, because like there's a scene where he's got to talk to one of his slaves and say like, "Hey, you're not supposed to treat Django like any of
He's
the
a
other
free
slaves
man.
around here
He's not
because
a
he's
yeah, he's a free
free.
man.
But you better not talk to him like any of the white guys around here. That's for sure." And
Oh
he's
well, no, I
struggling to
didn't tell
find
you
out
that.
like,
I love that when he's like, "Oh, well, I didn't say
no,
that," and she's like,
that's
"Well, I
not
don't
what I said.
understand." Yeah, and she's like, "Well, I don't understand you." Then and he's like, "No, no, that makes
I
sense."
can see that.
And then he's like, "Who's that? Who's that boy that goes to the bar?" Oh, Jeremy. Treat him like Jeremy. It's just
Yeah.
so funny.
It's a really and not to mention, if this was going to get a win for costume design, Django
I think the
and what
costumes
he's
work. Like to be honest, I
it
think the
didn't even get
costumes
nominated for
absolutely work.
costume
I
design.
mean,
I don't know
look,
how.
I understand Reservoir Dogs not getting like costume because that's low budget and like there's nothing there. But like costumes for this one, I just think it. I just think it. How did that not get nominated? You know, like it's
You
so good.
can't be
It's so
serious.
good. Who? That like what movie won
I haven't
costume?
seen Anna Karenina. That one, it's a period piece. British, those
Okay,
always
but
take
fair.
it.
Those always win costume. Yeah.
Les Mis, Lincoln, and Snow White and the Huntsman, fine, whatever. But Mirror,
Yeah.
the goofy ass Snow White movie? No,
Yeah. Fair. Well,
no,
but people
no,
want a Snow White
no,
kick.
no,
They just want a
no.
Snow White.
You got two Snow White movie. Pick one and give the other to Django. Let's get
Right.
to DiCaprio and Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah,
This
I
is
mean
my
those are the snubs,
favorite
right? Those
Leonardo DiCaprio performance.
right.
It's my favorite
Agreed.
performance of his, and he wasn't even nominated for Best Supporting
I
Actor.
think the only movie that rivals it for me in terms of performance is The Departed
See, I would go with Wolf of Wall Street as
or
far
Wolf of
as
Wall Street
level
because
of performance.
I think those two are interchangeable in terms of
And I'm
like his
glad
best.
that he was worked with Tarantino again in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's great in that as well.
Yeah,
But DiCaprio just
this
gets to
is
sink.
him. This is him.
This is just, and Samuel Jackson kind of had to have a talk with DiCaprio about using the N word because no one uses it more than DiCaprio in this movie. Maybe that's not entirely true, but like he's a very prominent user of that word in this. And at
So
no
was he
point
going
would you
off script when he was saying all that, or like is
no
it
no no
just
no no
like
no no
it
no
was
no no.
in the script?
It's a matter of he wasn't comfortable saying it, and a lot of
Samuel had
people
to be like,
Samuel
"It's okay,
Jackson
dude.
had to be like, "Hey, look, man, let's do this.
It's a
We like,
period. It's like it's the time period. Like go into it. Like say it. Like you're gonna be okay. Like it
yeah,
works. Yeah. No, okay, that
yeah.
makes sense. Because I think that's what I feel like that's what Jamie Foxx and Samuel L. Jackson very much have that opinion of it, and they always defend this movie as like I understand why people don't like that they're using the N word with the hard R and they're saying it all the time and but like it's this is 1850 like this is what they would have this is how they would have been talking so I mean yeah it makes sense that's interesting that he had to like talk to him and Leo like had to like kind of get over it but man is he so good as a character like I'm assuming once he got over that hiccup it was like all right I'm gonna go full into this like I'm gonna do my Leonardo DiCaprio thing and I'm just gonna go head on into this like a car crash. Like I'm about to be the best villain you've ever seen on the screen. Like that's
There's
kind of what he
multiple
comes out to
scenes
be.
in this movie where I'm just like, are
I
there
mean
other
the
people on the
scene
screen? You have everyone else
this
is giving Oscar level performances, but
yeah
DiCaprio's just like, move, bitch.
the, the scene with the skull and the hammer.
I will talk to you. You probably know the story behind that scene. Maybe you
Right.
don't.
Maybe
Um,
maybe I don't. Yeah. I don't
but I
know.
will
I
tell you
don't.
about that when we get to spoilers.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that scene's incredible. There's a scene with him where he's yelling about his sister. That's just fucking hilarious. If I'm going to be honest, um, every
Is there some tension
interaction.
here with him and his sister? I feel like there
There's
is
got to
a
be.
little.
He's no. He's fucking that sister. Let's be honest.
Okay.
Um,
Fair.
yeah. Let's call it what it is. No one is that excited to see their sister.
A spade is a spade. Yeah.
Nah, he was way too happy. No,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
yeah.
So
But
So
also
Leo was awesome, but let's be real. How 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 good was Samuel L. Jackson? And like
he's great.
once I put together, and I think he said this in like interviews before. Once I put together that he was basically like portraying Uncle Ruckus from like Boondocks, I was like, this man gets it. I was like, this is an amazing performance. It's just
From the
awesome.
first time that you see him and he's just mean mugging the shit out of Django coming into Candyland on a horse.
Who's this black guy on this horse? Like
Yeah.
who's this guy?
As soon as you get just a taste of who this guy is, you're like, all right, I'm gonna enjoy watching the back and forth between him and Django and him and DiCaprio. and I want to see what
DiCaprio's line
happens with this
about
guy.
him, like as he's walking back to the house after he yells at him, like, "This is our guest. Like, you're gonna go fix the rooms because I said so." And then he's like
You
still
woke
like running his mouth.
bastard.
Yeah, and then he's still running his mouth. And DiCaprio's line is like, "The lip on that boy, I swear." Like, I I just can't get over it. It's so good. It is so good. The chemistry between DiCaprio, Fox, and Samuel L. Jackson, and like the clashing of like those three characters in almost like a triangle is just, it just blows my mind how good it is. Like it is
There's
so
also
good.
something in this movie that I've never seen used the way that it is before. But there's like 3 or 4 scenes where someone says something and it's like this super zoom with like a sound effect. And it's the greatest
That
thing
is so
ever.
Tarantino. I don't even know if he's
Yeah.
done it in other movies, but that
Like
is so Tarantino.
Jamie Foxx says something on a staircase to somebody that he just met. That's like the funniest thing I've heard in a long time. And it's just this zoom out with the same sound effects to get everyone else's reaction. And
Right.
then DiCaprio, when they first meet him, and the very first time you see his face, it's just this goofy guy, um, and it's just like this zoom in with this like whoosh sound. It's
The whoosh.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. What didn't Steven like say something to him and he like turned, like Django turns around and it's like whoosh like onto his face and then it
Yeah,
just cuts to like
and it's
another
just
scene.
him mean mugging the shit out of Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's yeah. And then it just cuts. It just cuts to like another part of the scene. It's so funny. No, I
um,
love this movie. I
I
absolutely love it. I think
I
it's
think
great.
if I was to give any complaints, the only complaint that I have, and this is a complaint that I've had from and maybe I'm just a bitch. I don't know. Um,
Eh.
there's a scene that, I think that there's a shootout scene that just gets kind of repetitive, and I feel like it was just a little too sudden for what was going on. And then there's
Yeah.
also a scene where Jamie Foxx is hanging upside down, and I'm just like, I get it, but it just feels a little
Oh,
gratuitous.
yeah, the way they shot that scene. I mean, I
Yeah, the
get
way they
it.
shot
Like,
that scene is
I,
like, I don't want to be looking at this.
yeah, yeah, I don't even be looking at his, let's just call it large cojones,
Yeah. Well, you don't
staring
see
at
his
me.
yeah, you don't see anything.
But
It's
you
just like
see
you're
the
just
cojones. You
just
see the cojones. You
do
definitely
you?
see his. Yeah. Oh no.
Oh,
I
well,
I watched it last night. You see
yeah, maybe you were just
his
looking for
stack. No, no, no. I mean, it's right there in your face. You can't miss it.
him. I did.
Yeah. Well. No. Yeah. I mean, some of the shots are like kind of bizarre, but it's also like that's who Tarantino is. So I'm like, I'm kind of honestly the Mr. Minute Monsieur Candy's occupation or like what he does as like a living is kind of like rubs me the wrong way. Like I get what it is and like get what they're doing, but like the fight club aspect or like the fighting ring that he has is very like it's kind of like I don't, I'm trying to figure out a good way to put this. It's very it leaves you feeling a little queasy, like a little like you're flinching at it, like ew, that's a little like
With with that one
yeah,
shot, I feel like it's just so like, I get
it's
what you're trying
grotesque.
to do, but I feel like
Are
the
you talking
type of
about in the fight when like they do the Foley scene, the Foley
yeah,
like artist?
but also like
Yeah,
that Jamie Foxx scene you were talking about, where the camera's kind of set up and you're looking between his legs at Samuel L. Jackson.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the type of grotesque that I like in this movie is like when Django shoots a guy and his blood goes spattering over the cop.
Right,
I'm like, that's a
that's great.
great shot.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's the type of thing that I love in this movie.
I mean, same
Whereas,
with like the shootout in Candyland, like the shootout in the
yeah,
house, like
there's some blood
blood
on a
flying everywhere.
flower that I
I
think
mean,
is really, it's like,
we don't usually
it's
do this,
man, that's
but
really
let's give a
artistic. I
shout.
like it.
Yeah, we don't usually do this, but let's give a shout out to the Foley artist. Like
Yeah,
the Foley artists were in their bag. Like they were doing
they
whatever they
were.
wanted.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, some of these
I'm
shots were great. Some of the sounds were just like it's just the bullet whizzing and it's like Like when it hits bodies, it's so interesting. I really loved it. That was something that was awesome to like experience, kind of.
I'm giving this an A plus. It is up
Okay.
there for me. And I thought this was going to come in above Pulp Fiction, but Pulp Fiction was just so much
Ooh,
better than I remembered it being.
fair
That
enough.
this is going to get a 66.64.
No, that's a good one.
I love the movie. It's fantastic. It would be
It's a high A
it
plus.
it's
Yeah.
it's higher than Top Gun Maverick. Like
Yeah.
yours was with Reservoir Dogs. It's higher than that. So there are definitely years that this would have been my favorite movie. And I don't know if 2012 is one of those years. I'm unreasonably high on Silver Linings Playbook. That movie just connects to me on a level that I'm
No,
not
fair.
quite
Yeah.
sure I can
It's an
explain.
awesome movie.
And when we do end up getting to that, I'm sure I will be able to put it into words. But Django Unchained is probably the better made movie of those two. That it just
Hmm.
doesn't connect to me quite the same. But when we get into spoilers, we can definitely go into Django and how people could connect with some stuff.
Right. So for me, I had Reservoir Dogs at an 80.8 A plus, and this is going to be an A plus. It's no doubt about it. It's Tarantino. I love Tarantino. I'm giving this an 80.9, so 1.1
Ooh.
higher. But I'll say this: I think it's the better movie, and I think I like it more. But it's close, and it's really close.
So this
And
is
to
your
be
number
honest,
one Tarantino movie.
right now, yes.
Nice. All right.
Right now,
So right now your
yes.
number one is Django, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction.
But to be fair, Pulp Fiction is a high A plus. I mean, it's
Yeah.
higher than like even an A plus that. I mean, it's very close to the A plus that I might be higher than the A plus you gave because I have it at 70.5. So I think
Yeah.
it's awesome. Yeah,
I'm Pulp Fiction, Django, and then a bit of a
but
gap, Reservoir Dogs, but I
right.
still love all three.
But I do want to preface this by saying that I don't know if you're gonna find someone who loves Tarantino as much as I do. Like I was telling you before we started the podcast, and I think I'm just gonna go ahead and let the audience know. I think Tarantino is my second favorite director behind Christopher Nolan.
All right.
So it
Good
makes
time to
sense
like
why.
both of those guys with Nolan
Yeah,
winning that Oscar.
right, exactly. It makes sense to me as to why I like this film or like why I like these movies so much because I just think it captures what I want out of a movie. And I just think when it comes to writing and directing, like you can talk about his acting, and it's really funny that he gives himself like basically throwaway roles in movies that he like writes and directs. But there's no denial that he is like one of the better writers and directors in Hollywood, in my opinion.
Let's go ahead and dive into spoilers, starting with Django
Yeah.
Unchained. I really liked the chemistry between Walt and Fox. I thought they played off each other really well. And once they get to Candyland, their goal is to rescue Broomhilda, and so they kind of want to
Yeah.
come across like they want to buy
So they were willing to spend 12K on a on one of his slaves that's like a fighter, and like they're in the fight business or whatever
Mhm.
with the slaves, but they were willing to spend 12K on that, and then they were going to spend what, $400, $500 on Broomhilda,
Yeah.
Hildy, which is Django's wife.
But they don't plan
That
on
to
ever
me is
really
interesting.
exchanging money.
Right, they were going to rip him off basically. Right, they were
Yeah.
going to kill
And
Candy.
until Samuel L. Jackson is like, they're playing your ass for a fool. They
Right,
they
which is
they
the
know
best, one
each
of the
other.
best scenes. Yeah, one of the best
It
scenes.
really is a good one. And then DiCaprio being Calvin Candy being the showman that he is, just has to bring out this skull, and he's pretty much talking about how black people are more uh docile
Submissive,
and submissive because
sir,
of
sir,
dimples
yeah,
in the
servant,
skull.
dude, and it's like,
And
okay,
I'm
this
I'm
is a
sure that
little like
yeah,
whack job science,
I'm sure there
like I
are
don't believe in it.
unfortunately people that still believe stuff like that.
Right, right.
But in that scene, DiCaprio has this big outburst about like he's like slams the table and hey, put your hands on the tabletop, and there's like a gun that comes out, And
There's been a
DiCaprio,
lot of lying going on at this table
but that you
tonight.
can believe.
Yeah.
DiCaprio's, I mean, that whole like gentleman, you had my curiosity, now you have my attention. That's become like just a staple that people say. That wasn't said before
Right.
DiCaprio. But he cut his hand in one of the takes. I know that you probably noticed that
Yeah. He's just like
DiCaprio
bleeding.
he smears blood on Kerry Washington's face.
Did he not
Now,
mean to cut his hand?
he did not mean to cut his hand. I think he broke a bone in his hand and had blood. Now, there were a lot of people saying, now if he went forward with that, that's nasty because he smeared his own blood on Kerry Washington's face. No, it was because in that scene where he's, slamming down on the table, it was such a good take that they were like, all right, let's get blood on his hand and let's use that for the next, like fake blood.
Oh, fake
And
blood. Yeah.
let's use that now. So they kind of
Edited
altered
together
things so that they
Yeah,
could use
and I
that
think you
take
can
because it was
tell.
so good.
I think you can tell like how they edited it because they kind of like jump away from DiCaprio to Butch,
Yeah,
which
the
is
guy with the gun.
DiCaprio's like secondhand man, and then they jump back to DiCaprio and he's like bleeding. So that is well done. I thought you were about to say something wild, like he went off script, he like broke his hand, and then he had blood in his hand. He was just like,
No,
"Yeah, I'm
no.
about to smear this in her face, like let's just see what happens." But
But there were people for years that thought
who thought that was a real thing?
like because it was always told that DiCaprio actually like hurt himself and was bleeding. So people were saying that, so she just
I mean,
smeared
that's
his own
method
blood on
acting.
Kerry Washington.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna say that's
Kerry
method
Washington
acting for
had
the
to be
next
like,
level.
no,
Yeah,
that didn't
yeah.
happen. That didn't happen.
But he plays the character so well and he gets in the character so much that it really is believable. Like it's believable that he would do that. So
And
I
also
mean, yeah,
props to Quentin Tarantino for saying, that's a good
that
take.
take
I
was
have an
so
idea of
good.
where to take this. And it
Right.
worked out really well. But as a result, they get the drop on him, and it's all right. There needs to be like some money exchanged before you guys can leave with Broomhilda.
She's the right person for you.
And
Yeah.
Dr. King Schultz is not taking this L nicely.
Oh no,
He
but
is
I mean, my favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes from Candy and Schultz exchange. I think you're a terrible loser. Well, I think you're an abhorrent winner. I think
an abysmal winner.
Yeah, an abysmal winner is what he says. Sorry, abysmal. And I think that exchange is so great.
I like when he's talking about I wonder what Alexander Dumont would have to say about this.
Yeah, Dumas.
And he's
Yeah,
like,
Dumas.
you don't think he'd approve, soft-hearted Frenchie? And he's like, Alexander Dumont was black. And DiCaprio, right. I thought you would want to know because you named your prized fighter after one of his main characters, and then hey, you signed all the papers.
Is so mad. He's
but
so
DiCaprio's just like, I kind of want one last little just smeared in your face. You need to shake my hand before we leave, and if you don't, kill him. So right. Christoph Waltz is like, fine, you insist. And then, that little sound effect, his gun pops out of his wrist. He shoots him right in that little flower, and he starts falling over, and all hell breaks loose. Butch shoots Dr. King Schultz.
Right. Schultz immediately goes
Django shoots Butch, and then everyone's like,
of the best
we finally have an excuse to kill Django.
Right. Is it one of the best lines Christoph Waltz delivered? It was like,
if
couldn't resist.
Right,
if you insist. And then he shoots him, and then he turns to Django, and this is like 2 seconds before he gets like blasted with a sawed-off shotgun. He goes like, couldn't help myself. And I was like, sorry, oh, that's such a great ending. Right.
Yeah, that was
such a great ending for a character.
And then there's a big shootout. Django and Broomhilda both end up taking L's. Broomhilda basically ends up back where she was, and Django is going to get sold to the LeQuint Dickey Mining Company. And they're like, well, these are the worst on slaves. You're working in a mine, and it's terrible.
They don't care about you.
But he still has a handbill from one of his earlier, from his first his first bounty, because Dr. King Schultz says it's always good luck to keep your first handbill from your first kill. And he convinces these guys at the LaQuint-Dickey Mining Company that, like, hey, they're down at Candyland and we can go get this and go get all the money, and I'll help you with it. And they're like, yeah, no, this sounds great.
You
And then he
seem like
just
a
kills all of
stand-up.
them and runs
Yeah,
off with a
you seem
horse.
like a stand-up citizen.
It's a fantastic scene where you just see how far Django's come from, like, he says at one point, he's like, do I sound like a fucking slave? It's one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. It's like, you really sold that. No, you don't.
No, you sound like a person who was not put through that. Yeah,
But
it's just interesting. Also, shout out to Tarantino because again, being a throwaway role, he gives himself one of
I
those.
did like him best in this because he only has like 2 lines, and I thought that I thought it
Delivered him well.
worked. But
Yeah.
I really like. There's a scene of like smoke clearing, and then Django just
Yep.
appears, and like, that's great cinematography right there. I love
If
it.
you told me
But
that was Dune 2 and Paul Atreides, I wouldn't
yeah,
I wouldn't know
hey,
the difference.
it's yeah. But there's a character that Django runs into earlier when he's trying to be like a tough ass to kind of sell the fact that he is what I
Oh
think they call
yes.
one-eyed Charlie. And he's kind of like giving this guy shit about, like, I'll get the molasses out your ass, or I'll kick your teeth in so hard your grandma will shit out bricks or something like that. But he's talking to this one slave and just giving him a
I'm
really
worse
hard
than these
time.
white men. Yeah, I'm worse than these white men. Like you don't
Yeah,
want to deal with
exactly.
me.
And the slave is there. He also got sold to the LaQuint-Dickey Mining Company, and he's there, and he sees what Django did, and he kind of understands. Like Django, like frees these these 3 slaves, and there's like a brief little smile that comes across his face as Django's riding off, and it's like I'm glad that he understood what Django was doing. It was a
Right,
nice
right,
little callback to something earlier in the movie where it's like, that's not who he is. I liked that.
right. Game respect game. No, I'm just
And then the
but
end
yeah.
of the movie, um, he shoots Walton Goggins in the penis and shoots Samuel L.
Gosh.
Jackson, blows up Candyland, rides
Amazing.
off into the sunset
Yeah.
with
I mean basically
Kerry
that's the movie. Yeah.
Washington,
It's the end of the
and
movie.
a fantastic end credit song that's basically just like, it might as well be Stilgar singing about Paul in Dune 2, but it's this guy singing about how cool Django is.
Right. No,
It's a
it's really
great
funny.
song. It's a great.
Yeah.
I don't know what the name of, and by the way, that song that you mentioned from the beginning of the movie that plays when they're walking across Texas or whatever, it plays again when he's in chains walking to the LaQuint-Dickey Mining Company, and it does
Mm-hmm.
a great job of selling that. Like, man, we were riding such a high, and
Call
now,
back. Yeah.
yeah, we're kind of back where we were, and we got to. And he gets out of that
In
situation
chains
quickly.
again. Yeah, in
It's
chains
like
again. Yeah.
Django rechained there for a minute. But if you don't have anything else to add about Django, we can move back to Reservoir Dogs, and I'll kind of let
Look,
you take the
I
lead with
only
that.
got like 2 scenes to talk about. So
Let's
Michael
hear it.
Madsen's character as Mr. Blonde, like when he cuts the cop's ear off, like, and then starts pouring gasoline on him, like it's grotesque. And to be honest, it's a little too far. But I look, I get what they're going for. Like I really do. I get why the scene's in the movie. I understand why it's there, but it's a little too grotesque for me. And then they show his ear, like the side of like like missing basically, and it's not a pretty sight.
I
And
like
yeah,
the fact that they didn't show it happening, but at the same time, for
right,
me, it was the gasoline where it's just like, this is getting a little too real here. Like,
right. Like this guy's literally about to like set this place on
yeah,
fire.
but
Like
then,
arson is about to be added to his list of crimes.
Tim Roth, some fucking how, after
I
not
mean,
drowning in 18 gallons of blood,
hero man,
came out of his
hero,
body, shoots him, and you find out that
an
he is
undercover
the one
cop.
that's been working with the police.
Yeah,
And I always had
Were
my
you
suspicion.
surprised? Were you
No, I
surprised it was
wasn't
him? Like
surprised.
when you first watched it? Yeah.
If I was like putting money on it, he would be the one with the top odds. But it's not like other
It's well
movies.
played.
Like,
Yeah.
God, we talked about something lately where it was like such and such was played off as a twist, and it really shouldn't have been. This, I had enough times where I was like, maybe it's him, maybe it's him, maybe it's him,
I
to
mean,
the
at
point
one point,
where
I was like, "Is this Mr. Blue?" Like they just don't show him on screen, but it's actually Mr. Blue. Like I was like, "Yeah."
there were enough time where
You
I
know
was
what I'm
like,
saying?
maybe it's Joe, maybe it's Harvey Keitel, maybe it's like, I
Maybe
never
it's
thought it
Chris
was,
Penn because Chris Penn is so
yeah,
like adamant that like there isn't a rat. Like maybe it's him.
I
Like
never once thought it was Michael Madsen because, like, come on,
he's
that was
almost
just,
too absurd.
yeah, no,
Like
you wouldn't be doing all this if you stop, unless you're an idiot. Uh, but I thought that that was well played, and I liked that they showed you enough of it. And his, I don't know who the guy is that played the guy that was kind of like walking him through being undercover and the stuff that he needed to do. But I
oh
liked their
yeah,
scene
Holdaway.
together. I thought
Yeah,
that was well done.
yeah. I'll give him a shout out. Randy Brooks was Holdaway.
Yeah, no, good job. I liked their dynamic.
Yeah. I so I like that exchange between those two, and really the only other scene I really wanted to talk about that's kind of a spoiler is it's not really a spoiler because it happens at the very beginning of the movie, but Tim Roth absolutely leaking blood and just screaming in the back seat, and like the way he's like screaming is like edgy and like disturbing, and he's like he can't breathe. He's like,
It
yeah,
makes you
he
feel
shot me. He shot me.
it
Oh my
makes you
god, I
feel
can't
like
do this.
you are in a car with one
Right.
of your friends and something horrible just happened and you're trying to find a way to deal with it, but like you're also trying to keep him calm.
I'm sorry, Larry. I'm gonna die, Larry. Like, I mean, that's why I was almost surprised that Tim Roth didn't get a nomination. Cause like I think those like 7 minutes of Tim Roth is just like unfiltered, like brilliance by someone who should be dying and like is dying on screen, and like you feel it, like you feel the pain of like this person dying in front of your eyes on screen. And I mean he plays it so well in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know if you have any more scenes to talk about, but those are kind of the
Basically
two.
everyone dies.
Yeah,
They
well
have like a
the
big
ending
time
scene
shoot off
the
or
ending scene is wild, right? I mean the
yeah,
police come in, like everyone else is basically dead, and Tim Roth's character, after he's bleeding out and the police are like coming in, and like there's there's three, I mean, what would you call it, like an old fashioned like standoff where all three of them like shoot each other at the exact
yeah,
same time, and they're like two of them die. It was like Nice Guy Eddie and Joe die. And then Harvey Keitel's character, Mr. White, is like also dying at that point. Like he's on the ground, like, and he's holding Tim Roth's character because Tim Roth's character is like, "I'm sorry, you had to get shot." Like, and then Tim Roth's character just goes, "Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, Larry. Like,
yeah.
I'm the cop. I'm a cop." And then you could just see on Harvey Keitel's on Mr. White's face, he's like, "You got to be kidding me!" Like, I just defended this guy
I've been
for
defending this guy for the whole movie,
right
and
all day. Yeah,
but you also, I really, Harvey Keitel, I really think he's the standout of this thing for me. Which
yeah,
again,
fair.
he's probably the main star, so saying the main standout probably isn't too
Sneaky,
bold. But
right?
he also does a great job of selling the exhaustion at the end of it.
That's
Just
it.
like,
Yeah,
I've been going to bat for you this whole time, but I'm tired as hell. I know the cops are coming.
I'm
Steve
done.
Buscemi just
Yeah.
walked off with all the diamonds, and he probably just walked into a bunch of gunfire from police. So
Oh,
no
you
one's
hear it in the
getting,
background. He gets like absolutely obliterated by the police. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
So no one's
Like,
walking away with anything from this. Our leader's dead
so
because I just shot him. I'm just
my
exhausted.
ranking, my ranking in this movie is Tim Roth, Harvey Keitel, and in my opinion, it's Buscemi and Chris Penn as the next like tier down in terms of acting performances, because I think Chris Penn as Nice Guy Eddie gives a sneaky good performance, as like he's just kind of all over the place, and he's like, listen here, there is no rat, there is no rat. I
Did you
I,
know
I
that
have personally like vetted these people. There is no rat. Like I just
yeah.
think it's so funny.
Did you know that he is Sean Penn's brother, or he was? He's been dead for a bit now.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah,
So this was definitely a good place to start for Tarantino. I
yeah,
think it does a good job of setting up the things that he likes to do while also giving hints of some more stuff to come.
right. Hateful Eight, Pulp Fiction. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh,
that is the Reservoir Dogs and Django Unchained review, guys. If we have not sold you on seeing these movies,
I
then then maybe
I
just
thought
skip the Tarantino series.
right. Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say I thought you were connecting these two movies, and I was thinking in my head like, how do these two movies connect? I was like, maybe Mitchell just loves like bloody shootouts, and he's like, oh, I had to pick between Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Reservoir Dogs, and I just went with Reservoir Dogs is like bloody shootouts in the middle of a movie. But no, this is as good as it gets from Tarantino, and I absolutely love these movies.
Well, Brandon, you definitely wanted to stick with the Tarantino, so you're going to get your wish. Next up, Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2. If I have to explain to you why those two are getting the podcast together, then there's no hope. I think that's pretty obvious. Then we're going to go with Inglorious Bastards and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I will keep that in the pocket as to why until we get there. I'm sure a few of you might be able to figure it out. And then finally, Jackie Brown and The Hateful Eight. And that'll wrap things up for the Quentin Tarantino session. And once we finish with that, we'll kind of look back and give our overall thoughts on Tarantino's filmography and our final rankings after we had seen all
Mm-hmm.
9 of Quentin Tarantino's theatrically released movies. So, Brandon, thanks for joining me as we go through these Tarantino films. And also, if you had any curiosity about Tarantino's work, hopefully after watching these, you check out some of the other stuff and maybe watch along with us as we dive into the filmography of one of the greatest directors of our time.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we'll be right back at it again with Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2 next. You have a good one.